Right now, the big news is eggs. $9 for eggs. Wow. I hope you have some chickens because we do. We have too many eggs. But my friends, there is a shortage of something else much more alarming. And you can already see it on the screen for those that are watching. Sperm. That's right. The most precious resource this country has to offer. Sperm. It's running out. The Spectator writes, how worried should we be about falling sperm counts? I'd argue significantly worried because it's not just about underpopulation or population collapse. It's about, can we even recover from population collapse? Now, in my view, endocrine disruptors are one of the leading culprits of the decline of sperm. And I was kidding about it being one of our most important resources, but you kind of need it to make more people. So probably an important thing to have. I want to show you this right here. This is a bottle of natural spring water from Saratoga Still. Got it off the internet. It's in a glass bottle, and it's natural spring water in a glass bottle. I also have my coffee here, and this is in a metal container of sorts because we've gotten away from plastics to the best of our abilities. And I'm looking actually towards getting away from all foods with plastics in general to get away from the endocrine disrupting phthalates and PCBs. I'm just saying, man, we got rid of protein bars with gunk in them. Our protein bars now, the ingredients like beef, salt, pepper, beef, honey, salt, pepper. Ooh, some honey. I'm thinking that these plastics will be looked on in 50 years like asbestos because we're destroying ourselves. Here's the article from The Spectator. They say, here's a jolly thought to start the year. Humanity is on its way to extinction due to a drastic decline in sperm counts. Men's reproductive health is in such a perilous state that it won't be long until nobody can conceive a child unassisted. I got to be honest. It kind of sounds like it's on purpose. That, anyway, is the argument that's become perennial. Every year or so, most recently, just at the end of 2022, a new sperm counting study emerges and reignites the fears that we're biologically condemned to extinction. How anxious should we be? Here's the story so far. In 1992, a seminal study was published in the British Medical Journal that claimed to show evidence of decreasing quality of semen during the last 50 years. It was a meta-analysis, a review paper that gathered together all relevant studies that measured sperm since 1938, lining up their results to discern any trends. The conclusion was the average sperm count had fallen from 113 million per milliliter, the standard unit in the field, in the early 20th century to 66 million by the end of the 1990s. That's like half. The study was torn to pieces. There simply isn't a fair comparison, other researchers noted, between the 1940s and 90s equipment for measuring sperm count, the latter being far more accurate. Not only that, but there was very little data available for the first 30 years of analysis. Samples from a mere 184 men were included. So the comparison across time was murky. Critics reanalyzed the data and found no evidence of a decline in sperm count overall. The debate went quiet while more data accumulated. Then, in 2017, researchers put fresh data together and published a new meta-analysis. Looking at 244 data points beginning in the 1970s, average sperm count had dropped from 99 to 47 million by 2011, approximately a 50% decline. Shanna Swan, one of the authors of the 2017 meta-analysis, wrote a book, Countdown, that made apocalyptic claims about declining sperm counts. She claimed that the phenomenon threatens human survival and that extrapolating the line from her study meant that sperm counts could reach zero in 2045. Yikes. Like the study from 92. The 2017 analysis had its critics. Some of their arguments, though, were rather weak. For instance, a few researchers noted that even though sperm counts had dropped, the current average would still be considered normal under standard medical guidelines. It's not until the number falls between 15 million per milliliter that you have a serious problem. It's not a great argument. Imagine if someone said sea levels have been rising dramatically, but we shouldn't worry because major cities are not yet underwater. Such daft thinking is based on a failure to look forward in time. Not only that, but if the average is so much lower now, the proportion of men with a medically low sperm count must be far greater than it was. The other night, Luke passively mentioned in a news story we never got into. He said something like only, 1 in 400 sperm donors actually make the cut at this point. Because not only are sperm counts lowering, but the quality of sperm itself is not good. They're just not functioning well. Alas, politics also set in. Since the meta-analysis appeared, some commenters have been happy to help spread panic about the coming fertility crisis. This caused an equal and opposite reaction. One group of researchers fretted that the studies might be co-opted by men's rights and alt-right activists. Oh, shut the up, you lunatics. And the science could become racialized, implying imperiled white male fertility. It's a rather silly form of criticism, but it contains an element of truth. The meta-analysis included very few studies from non-Western countries, rendering it impossible to make claims about a worldwide decline in fertility. This brings us to the newest addition to the debate. The same researchers now published an update to their 2017 analysis, including 44 more data points, many of which are from a more diverse array of countries. It's still bad news. Not only do they find, using the same methods, that the sperm count decline is happening in non-Western countries too, but they find the decline has become even more precipitous since 2000. Yikes again. Here's where it's helpful to look at some details of how the individual studies in the meta-analysis were done. The best kind of study is a prospective study. You take sperm samples from a group of, say, 20-year-olds in, say, 2001, then wait a decade and take samples from a group of people who are 20 in 2011. That generation-on-generation comparison is really what we want to know. But because it takes so much time and effort, it's the rarest kind of study. Far more studies are retrospective. For instance, looking at samples given to one sperm bank over the same time period and comparing it to counts within the same year, blah, blah, blah. There are many more studies of this kind. Many more data points come from one-off studies. Yeah. They're going to say, if you thought that was all very tangled, wait until we get to the issue of practical consequence of this drop in sperm counts. We know that the fertility rate, at least in the developed world, has declined massively since the mid-20th century. But it's not known to what extent, if at all, this has anything to do with fecundity. That is, how much is it due to a drop in the biological ability to have kids, as opposed to social or economic factors, such as greater education and employment for women, less child mortality, high cost of housing, and so on. And here's the final question. If we agree sperm count really is declining, then what's causing it? Swan is convinced that it's largely due to environmental pollutants, specifically the chemicals given off by some plastics known as phthalates, which can disrupt our hormones. I said it. PCBs, etc. There's some unclear evidence for this from animal studies, though not much for humans. One prospective study that tested the donor's urine for phthalates found that they were able to explain about a fifth of the overall decline in sperm count. Other than phthalates, higher rates of obesity and poor diet are plausible. I got to be honest. I do think endocrine disruptors are playing a huge role in this, but I kind of think it's because people are getting chunkier and bigger, and it's making their overall health worse, and the body is struggling to produce. I'd be willing to bet that if you also compared the sperm counts with also, say, standard blood tests, you might find a correlation between low sperm count and bad blood, high blood pressure, high sodium, high cholesterol, etc. I think it's fairly obvious. Despite that, however, I do think endocrine disruptors are playing a big role because we've known this for some time. I should say we've thought it for some time. Stories have come out for a while. Even Alex Jones yelled, "They're turning the freaking frogs gay." What was that, like 14 years ago or something? He said that. It became a meme. Maybe it was like 10 years ago. But there are a lot of stories about pesticides, about plastics, screwing with our endocrine systems. In frogs, it was causing ovaries to become testes and testes to become ovaries, and that's what Alex Jones was talking about. He was talking about something called atrazine. Now, since he reported on that news, they've come out and said, actually, we were wrong about atrazine. We don't think it's actually causing it, whatever. The point is, there are a lot of chemicals in our food, a lot more chemicals that never used to be there, petrochemicals, things we did not used to ingest, and now we are. Plastics are being found in our blood. Plastics are going in the ocean, breaking down, being eaten by small animals, being eaten by fish. Then we eat the fish and we get plastic in our blood. Now, nature has an answer. Many of these plastics are being eaten by bacteria who's adapted to break down these particles and convert them into bacteria bodies, sort of recycling them back into the system. But that doesn't eliminate plastics as a whole. And that means we have produced a pollutant that is negatively impacting us. We learned about the problems of asbestos. If asbestos is in your building, it's not that big a deal until you start to remodel. Because once you're breaking it out and pulling it out, fibers are getting in the air and all of a sudden, mesothelioma. So we don't like those things. We want to get rid of them. I've seen a lot of buildings that has asbestos. I've seen a lot of buildings for sale that has asbestos, and it's bad for us. I think we're going to look back on plastics and say, A lot of good things came of plastics. It made a lot of things more feasible. Probably a bad idea in the long run to put it basically everywhere. But I'm looking in this room I'm in right now, and there's plastic everything. Now, for us, at least the food we consume, we've moved away, we personally. Most of our food is still wrapped in plastic, but I like to go to the deli and get wax paper covered food. Not perfect, but I like to get fresh food. I like to get water in glass bottles. I like to use my own water filtration system to get out the gunk. It's not looking good. There may be a depopulation agenda. Maybe it's on purpose that sperm rates are declining. Maybe it doesn't matter because it's happening anyway. Either way, take care of yourself. Think locally. What can you do to better yourself? Exercise. Cut the sugars. Focus on getting good at anything. Just start doing stuff. Try and eat food that's not coming out of plastics. Do the best you can, my friends. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Hang out with us live. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out now, and we'll see you all then.